Welcome to another episode of Monster Monday from the Ready to Die channel. This series explores the design of a creature I have built for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The stat block for this creature can be found over on the Monster Monday blog, as well as the Twitter and Discord, all of which are linked below. We've faced flourishing Frankensteins, warred with wintry werewolves, and victimized violent vampires. Now, it is time to delve deeper, down where the demons dwell, plunging into perilous pits, traveling through terrifying tunnels, until finally we find ourselves face to face with the Archdemon of the Abyss, the Gaismagorm. This is the last of the totally new monsters introduced in the Sunbreak expansion of Monster Hunter Rise. The Gaismagorm serves as the final story encounter before the credits roll. Thought to be nothing more than a myth, it is treated less like a typical monster, and more like an abomination straight out of myth, which extends to the description of its components that you gather from it. It is classified as an Elder Dragon, though an exceptionally powerful one, as the true master of the Curio. I build most of my Elder Dragons at level 18, but this guy seems a little beefier than usual, leading to the use of level 20 for this creature. Additionally, while it is a dragon like many of the other Elder Dragons I've built, I wanted to play into its title and a lot of the theming it has going on, which lends to the use of the Fiend trait, tying it to the Abyssal Realm, for which it is named. The Gaismagorm is built as a brute, and based on that roadmap it has an extreme strength, which is also based on its just immensity, and the might that it demonstrates during its battle. Similarly, its constitution is high. This is a massive creature with a thick, scaly hide, but it isn't the most agile, which lends to a low dexterity. This continues to reflect its brute roadmap, and with its size and body shape, the Gaismagorm isn't exactly dodging anything anytime soon. Its only other positive ability score is its wisdom with a moderate bonus, which is kinda based on its mastery over the Curio. The Gaismagorm has a moderate perception bonus, as well as only a single skill in its collection being athletics. This has a high bonus to let it overpower creatures that try to pin it down, but it doesn't make a lot of use out of it otherwise. There's very little information on the Gaismagorm ecology-wise, which made it difficult to determine some of these features, some of these skills. We made a tiny adjustment to the Gaismagorm's defenses following the Monster Mash, though it keeps the moderate armor class that I originally designed it with, since it isn't what I'd call a small target. However, it has a very high pool of hit points, so while it is taking these hits, it can absolutely weather them. Now, in addition to this, it has very low resistance to physical damage based on the way that blades bounce off high-level creatures in Monster Hunter when the weapon isn't sharp enough. It also has a weakness to electricity and is strangely immune to ice and water damage, lending to the cold immunity. Then for some bizarre reason, despite all the fireballs and the like that this thing throws around, it doesn't actually have any particular resistance to fire. Now I tend to use extreme bonuses sparingly, but did so with the Gaismagorm's Fortitude, which is balanced by its terrible reflex. Like I said, I don't imagine the Gaismagorm dodging around all that much, and use a lower score for this reason. In between these two is a moderate will save, mostly to serve as a balancing factor between the other two extremes. The Gaismagorm is a massive monster with a lot of slow, telegraphed attacks. To represent this, both of its strikes only use a moderate bonus. In return for the slightly lower hit value, the Gaismagorm is compensated with dire damage. Its foreclaws, referring to its larger pair of limbs, deal high damage, and also have the sweep trait based on the way it drags its claws through the earth. Then, as you can clearly see, the Gaismagorm has a nasty set of jaws, which inflict extreme damage. As I said, I'm always cautious about using these extreme values, but having tested this creature out, I am happy with the design of it. The only moderate attack bonus definitely balances it out. The Gaismagorm is armed with a plethora of potent powers, and we'll start with something on the simpler side of things. Now, I've had a history of having trouble making abilities where the monster draws creatures in, sort of sucks them in like a vacuum. Some examples include the recent Hellmaw Salamander, as well as Nidhogg from God of War, both of which needed at least 2 tests to run due to performance issues in the first. But now I feel like I've finally figured it out, or at least got lucky with the Gaismagorm's Vortex ability. This is a single action with an extreme DC that drags creatures towards the Gaismagorm, putting them in range of its other abilities. I wanted to add a little more punch to this effect, so creatures dragged to it with forced movement to spare are also knocked prone. Now, in the monster test, 3/4 of the party happen to have Kip up, but it's still the best an ability like this has ever performed. For characters that it draws all the way in, the Gaismagorm can use its explosive slam, in which it smashes an enemy with a claw strike and then releases an explosion. This deals fire damage in between limited use and unlimited use area damage with a very low cooldown. The Gaismagorm has two abilities like this in Monster Hunter. One where it does just a single slam, and one where it slams its claw and then drags it, creating a line of explosions. Having the two abilities that function pretty much the same like this, just with different shapes, felt a little redundant and led me to drop it. But I do think if you want to include it, I designed it that the Gaismagorm makes two 4-claw strikes, each against a different target. It then creates explosions as listed in this ability, as well as explosions in the area between the two targets. However, you either need to make this a 3-action ability, or greatly increase the cooldown on it to balance it out. As another 2-action ability, the Gaismagorm can unleash a conflagration, generating an immense fireball that it detonates with a clap of its oversized limbs. I actually increased the range of this a tiny bit just because a lot of its other abilities ended up having increments of 15 feet, and I just kinda wanted to match that. This means that this deals limited use area fire damage in a 60-foot emanation around the Gaismagorm, with a high DC reflex save. It has a pretty standard cooldown, but unlike most dragons, the Gaismagorm doesn't have a way of lowering its cooldown. There's no abilities like Draconic Momentum on the Gaismagorm. The Gaismagorm's final two abilities are both 3-action effects, the first of which starts as a pretty standard trample ability. However, when the Gaismagorm is reduced below a certain hit point threshold, it begins venting violent energy, which leaves behind floating fireballs when it rampages. At the start of the Gaismagorm's next turn, any enemies that didn't move get caught in the explosion of these fireballs, which deal unlimited use area damage at a moderate DC. Tramples for some reason tend to use these moderate DCs, possibly because they nicely combine actions and can be used without limit, so I stuck with that for the design of this ability. The fireballs may only catch the PCs the first time, when they aren't expecting them, but the Gaismagorm could also use this to force them to move, and just gets the basic effects of trample already. Finally, there is the Gaismagorm's Rain of Fire. This 3-action ability does have the Manipulate trait because it leaves itself vulnerable when it uses this one in game. I was debating on how I wanted to design this effect before settling on allowing this to be a sustained ability, somewhat similar to the Ghoul and Combi from last week, that needs a 3-action setup. We decided to increase the range following the Monster Mash, but it still only uses unlimited use area damage with a high DC, which is based on the fact that the Gaismagorm can maintain the effect for multiple rounds in a row, and the cooldown doesn't start until after the effect ends. The unique skill found on Gaismagorm armor is called Dereliction, which causes Curios to start draining the health of the player in exchange for bolstering their attacks. As more of them flock to you, they simply deal more damage, and eventually let you regain health whenever you use a switch skill swap. The armor set also comes with the Resentment trait, dealing additional damage while you have recoverable health, which I translated into a passive effect in my design of the Armor of the Archfiend. Healing functions differently in Pathfinder from Monster Hunter, so I had this increased damage trigger on half health instead. Then, a wearer of the armor can activate the armor's demonic dereliction, allowing it to drain their health through the drain condition, to further enhance this damage. As you can tell by the name, this is meant to represent the unique skill, and to represent the healing aspect of it, I had it instead grant temporary hit points equal to this spirit damage. I'm a little worried that this design is kinda boring, just being something that amps your damage while hurting you, so be sure to let me know what you think of it. That covers my build for this ferocious fiend. This draconic demon drags itself from dire depths to deal devastation, dishing out detonations with a deadly design. I tested the Gaismagorm in an easy encounter, because that's what I do, but the Gaismagorm should obviously be a boss fight of some sort. It is a massive fiend and dragon, potentially allowing it to serve in a variety of roles. Maybe it's an apocalyptic beast that a cult is summoning. Maybe it's the mount of a demon lord that the heroes must face. Or perhaps it is something that has emerged and slowly been dragging itself from the depths, creating waves of monsters from the Darklands preceding it. Either way, let me know what you think of this creature, and what others you would like to see in a comment. If you want to check out the other monsters I've made, or even the stat blocks and other versions of this monster, head over to the Monster Monday blog or Twitter, linked below. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.